Hi, welcome to the Leadership Standard. I'm the host, Jamie Mason Cohen. Our guest today is my good friend, Mark Bowden. Mark is a world-renowned body language expert, a keynote speaker, and best-selling author. Voted 3 times Global Guru's #1 body language professional in the world. Mark's live and virtual keynote speeches and training provide invaluable support for business leaders and teams from influential companies across the world, including Zoom, Shopify, Toyota, KPMG, American Express, the US Army and NATO, as well as prime ministers of G7 nations. His best-selling books on body language and human behavior have been translated into multiple languages, such as Winning Body Language for Sales Professionals, Tame the Primitive Brain, and Truth in Lies, What People Are Really Thinking. Mark is a regular instructor for Canada's #1 ranked EMBA program at Kellogg School of Business, and he is president of the National Communication Coach Association of Canada. Mark's highly acclaimed TEDx talk, The Importance of Being Inauthentic, continues to reach millions of people around the world, as does his YouTube channel and the weekly YouTube sensation, which has close to 1 million subscribers, The Behavior Panel, as featured on the Dr. Phil Show. He's a go-to media commentator on the body language of politicians, celebrities, and public figures, appearing regularly on CNN, CBS, and Global News. And he is frequently quoted in the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and GQ magazine. And his new show that he co-stars in, The Behavior Panel, will premiere on Merit Street Media, Dr. Phil's new TV network. It's an honor, a pleasure to introduce Mark Bowden. Mark, welcome to the show.
Jamie, thanks for having me. This is nice because, we've known each other for a long, long time now, and it's great to see you, as always.
Well, thank you for being here and making the time, because I know you have so much going on. So I'd like to start there. Mark, what are you working on now?
Yeah, well, look, I just got off a call with a client of mine who's running, he's running part of, I think, maybe about the 6th largest company in the US right now, running supply chain for that. So I've been on that call. I was with another organization earlier on today, who was a portfolio manager, and I've got this TV stuff going on and the YouTube show and clients and keynotes to do, and there's a lot going on. But I don't want to burden you with my day, Jamie. Well,
it's not a burden at all. Let's start there with the TV show, because it's fascinating how you got to that place. Can you tell us about the TV show and what the origins of it were?
Yeah, okay. So you remember COVID, Jamie? That was when everybody stayed at home and it was all very tricky. So COVID starts, and there's 3 other experts in human behavior and body language that I've known for a while, and we've all got a bit more spare time because we're all trying to work out, well, we're not traveling anymore. So we'd always had this idea of we would try and get together and chat about stuff that was interesting to us, we thought, and potentially nobody else in the world, but we would get together and chat. So we did that, but on YouTube, on Zoom. And so we got together, we chatted about Tiger Kings, which was a very prominent Netflix show at the time. And basically we analyzed what was happening in some of the interviews there to work out, was one of the protagonists in Tiger Kings being honest or deceptive based on their behavior, their body language, their narrative. We put that up on YouTube and people started watching, and we were just astonished. And we got very quickly, within a few hours, we had like 1,000 subscribers to our new show. And one of us thought that somebody else had paid for that to happen. That wasn't the case. People were interested in it, and it just escalated and escalated and escalated incredibly rapidly until maybe about 4 or 5 months into that, we got a message from the Dr. Phil Show, and they said, "Hey, Dr. Phil is a massive fan, as is his partner, and so he'd love to have you on the show. You'll have to appear, on Zoom. And so we did his show, and then we did it subsequently. And then he started talking to us in secret about what his plan was, which was to start this new network, which he now has, Merit Street Media. And we started planning towards having a show on that network. And so we've recorded a bunch of shows. The network launched, maybe it was about 2 weeks ago, given the day today. So we're kind of mid-January, February, March, April, mid-April at the moment. It launched a couple of weeks ago. And our show will be on as soon as they've edited about 10 episodes together. So we got 10 to start running. But it won't be long. It won't be long, we hope. Well, so that's it, Jamie. I mean, it's not an ordinary story of how people get this kind of thing done,
Well, congratulations. And it's so well deserved seeing your trajectory over the past couple of years when you started the show. I'd love to just stay there for a moment and ask you, of all the different episodes that you filmed both on YouTube, on your show, and also on this new platform, what's one analysis that you and your cohort of world-class experts in body language and human behavior did that stands out to you that might be beneficial for leaders to learn from?
I'm going to give you two, one very recent and one very old, both recent in a way. One of my favorites has to be Prince Andrew. I don't know whether you remember his Emily Maitlis interview, which is consequently now a Netflix show, Scoop. Yeah. Very good. Take a look. So it was maybe that Prince Andrew was about the 4th episode that we ever did. And we really landed something really good on that. Number one, because Maitlis's interview is fantastic. It's a great interview. And Andrew is a car crash, a car crash of deception. And so for any leader watching this, if you want to know how not to go into an interview, how not to feel like you're above all of this and you won't get found out, and exactly what deception at its most subtlest and its most extreme looks like, take a look at that. We consequently found out just last week that the actor playing Prince Andrew had looked at that video that we made and studied it in order to work out the nonverbal communication. So we can see our work in the show. I mean, I watched a trailer before he had an interview and told people that he'd used our material. And I was watching it and I was like, it really looks like he's seen the show, because he's picked up on the exact pieces of body language that we were talking about. He totally had. He'd watched the show. So look, and that makes me feel good, because really the only reason we make the show is because it has an effect on people, is that people can use the content. It makes their lives better. In this case, one actor had a great result out of it and a great performance. Another show that I want to tell you about, Jamie, if I may, is the most recent show that came out this week, which is an interview with a guy called Gene Deal. And Gene Deal was the security for P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy. Yeah, and as we stand at the moment in the year, he's potentially in a lot of trouble. Now, Gene Deal is an amazing study in what telling the truth looks like. So if you want to know what honesty looks like, and you may think like, I can tell an honest person and I can tell a deceptive person. Well, we're really good at it. We're really good at it. And if you want to study in what honesty and truth looks like, that's your person. And any leader should go and look at that to go, you may not like the content and you may not resonate with him exactly and his background or where he's going, but it's interesting in terms of behavior. That's what honesty and truth looks like. I hope that's useful to you, Jamie.
It is useful. And just on that point, before we move on, can you tell if someone's telling the truth through specific body language?
Yeah, when there's enough of it. Okay, so we're looking for clusters. Anybody who says, look, when people are telling the truth, they'll be open. Yeah, sometimes, or they might be trained by me, and I've told them to be open and stick with that. Okay. Of course, you can be deceptive with truth signals as well. So you got to be careful. But what we're looking for is under pressure, under stress, under a certain context, are they showing enough of the right truth signals as opposed to the right deception signals? It's under right stress and pressure, it's very hard to hide your deception from somebody who really knows what to look out for. And even better, if I can control the situation and add more stress and pressure, then you're more likely, the part of your brain which is trying to control your body language and control the narrative will be used up on the other stresses and pressures that I'm putting on. And therefore, your deception will show through. So yes, you can, but you need enough signals to be more certain, and you need the right situation.
Okay, so context matters as well as a series of signals. You can't just point one because that might be misconstrued.
Oh, gosh, I mean, everything contextual. So, as I always say, there's no bad body language. There's just results that you wanted or didn't want. So a single piece, a single gesture, a single move could mean many, many things depending on the context. What we want to do is control the context or understand the context enough and the baseline of that, and then get a baseline on that person's behavior, and then look at where that person moves out of baseline in order to work out, okay, there's more stress going on, there's more cognitive load going on, something is happening there. Now, if we put that with what they've said and we put that with a deeper context, we can get closer to analyzing what the truth or the lie might be. But Jamie, it's an intelligence process, which means you want as much data as you can get, and then you want to bring that down to what really matters in that context to get close to the truth. It's a heavy load on the brain to do this. So it's not worth trying to work out if somebody's been deceptive or truthful in a situation where it doesn't matter, because it's a lot of work, essentially.
That's so interesting. And going back to what you said earlier, the show was such a hit online that Dr. Phil reached out through his people to learn more, and eventually it winds up on his network. What is it like working with Dr. Phil in terms of what can we learn from him? Because not only was he a successful doctor, he reinvented himself as a TV personality, an author, and now a owner and founder of a new network. You've worked closely with him in this process, even though it's a short amount of time. What can we learn about him so far?
Wow. I think it's got to be, him and the people that he's working with in order to do the biggest launch of a new US TV network ever. So it's pretty big. The studio that they built in Texas is beyond belief. I've seen some startups in my time. This is a startup US TV network, and it's extraordinary. I was saying to one, Matt Crouch, who's one of the partners there, as he always does when you head over there, and he kind of walks you through the complex as they're building more walls or taking more walls down, or big, volume studio is being built and these incredible screens coming in. I said, Matt, do you have a pillow that you just go and scream into somewhere? Because you're so kind of calm and, he's intense and he's active, but there's no sense of fear in there. And I'd say it's the same with, and for somebody like me, I have to go, well, where's the outlet for that? Like, what's happening? Where are you outsourcing that to? I'd say, Dr. Phil's the same. There is no sense of fear around it. Now, there probably must be some fear somewhere. I mean, it would be incredibly arrogant, potentially, if there weren't. But they're both leaders who, I guess, understand enough that it's not for the people who are following them to feel any of this fear or worry. They're not passing down, certainly to us, they're not passing down fear and worry and aggression that I can see. And you know, that for me, I think is the most extraordinary thing about it, because I think about myself, and I, you know, who can hardly, you know, have, you know, I work with consistently with 4 people with the behavior panel, and that's about enough. That's about enough people to kind of into manage, you know, myself with 3 other people. And I think about people who have large organizations and large startups like that with just incredible goals. And I go, well, Howard, that's not for me. That isn't my world at all. I don't know. But then now I've never put myself in that position. Most people I've managed is about 30, 35 people, I think, in an organization. And I didn't do too badly, but that's not this. Like this is extraordinary. So, you know, that would be my takeaway, is I feel very comfortable around those people. I feel very comfortable around Dr. Phil, and that shouldn't necessarily be the case in a situation like this. It's not a given that would be. So that is the case. I think that's the most extraordinary thing about him.
Mm. And what about you when you're working on a team, in this particular team, like you said, your work has several different paths and dimensions to it. In this particular case, you're working with a group of, you said, 4 different world-class experts. And it's a tight schedule from what I've seen. It's like highly demanding. What are your strengths that we can learn from, and how you work together with other world-class experts? And maybe what are areas that you constantly surprise yourself, want to learn and grow into?
Yeah. So the work piece, like how do I work in that situation, and maybe how do we work in that situation? I just came up with this as you were asking me this question. I was like, oh, I'm not sure I know the answer to this. So here's my immediate answer to this one, unthought about, is I think what I'm trying to do, and I think what we're trying to do, is look after ourselves and look after each other. And probably yourself first of all. So it has to be that thing of like, I don't need to, you know, burden everybody else with what's going on for me. But I do need to be there for everybody else if they've got something that needs looking after, or I can help out, you know, and that's okay for them to go, hey, I need some help on this, or I'm unsure around this area. That's good. I'm there. So anybody at any point can go, hey, give me a hand on this. Like, what's going on here? Anybody can do this, and everybody will step in and go, okay, we got your back on this one. But there's a self-resilience, I guess, a self-support system, and a social support system going on. I think that's where I place that. Now, as to, gosh, you know, I'm just learning. Having that show has been the greatest education in human behavior, communication, and body language, because I knew what I knew, and I'm pretty good, and I knew what I knew, but I didn't know what, you know, and they knew what I knew if I'd written it, and they'd read the stuff, and we all knew each other's work. And then there's the stuff that you didn't know they knew, and so you didn't know it either because they hadn't talked about that stuff. And so there's stuff where you go, wow, I didn't know that. That's really good. And you're learning it on the spot. It's like every week I'm getting together with the top people, you know, myself included, and we're having an exchange of ideas, and there's nowhere else in the world that's happening. And it's great to watch the show. Like, sometimes I watch the show now and again. Now I watch the show back and I go, damn, this is good stuff. Like, this is really, like, if I wasn't me, I would really love this. And I'm me and I really love this. And then you go, oh, and I was there as well. Like, I was contributing to that. I was part of this. So I think sometimes I'm amazed by what the other 3 contribute, and sometimes I'm like amazed by what I contribute, and sometimes I'm like, oh, that was really good what you said there. But that's not because of me. That's because of the. I mean, it is because of me, but I mean, it's me in that context, and the context is completely unique. I mean, there's nobody else has a show like that. And it would be hard to have, like, other people have already tried, and it's really hard. It's a band. It's hard to keep a band together, you know?
I love it. And so before the band got together, if we go back, most people listening or watching this will know you as a speaker, an author, a social media and media personality, and now a TV personality. What did you do professionally before all of this?
Yeah, so I started off in, well, let's call it entertainment, theater, film, TV, advertising, the communication. I lived in London. I worked primarily in London, though across the world as well. And what I would say I was involved in was telling stories with pictures and how you change people's feelings with pictures. Now, that meant that I sometimes would show up to theaters or a TV station or work on a film, and I might be there as a performer or a director or a choreographer or an advisor in some way. And that was me using the tool in a context. But really what I was trying to do was the art, and I mean that in terms of art of the human expression, not the kind of artifice of it, but the expression of how do you change people's feelings with the moving pictures that you show them. So I was obsessed with moving pictures and how you can manipulate them and read them and present them to people so that they will change. They'll change from one feeling to another feeling that you have decided for them. You've decided where you're going to move them to. And in the best example, it doesn't matter how they come to you. You can take them through a pipeline whereby they'll come out the other end changed in some way. And it wasn't every time that you could do that. Not every work of art is produced equally. Not every work of art is a moment of genius, but some were. And some, it didn't matter who you put in at the start of that, they were coming out the other end with a very specific change to them. So that was my world before then politics and business got hold of me and said, well, we see what you've done in that world of entertainment and media. Could you do that with politicians, first of all? And then people said, well, could you do that with the leader of a company? And that was really, how do they come on in front of an audience, be it a constituent during an election or a town hall for a corporation, and how can we change those people's feelings and their minds and get them in line some way to do what we need them to do, to align in some way.
And so would you describe that period of time when you started your real interest in connecting body language with the business world and beyond?
Yeah. So sorry, ask that question. Give me that question again.
Is that period of time when people started reaching out to you, executives, politicians, about helping them present and perform better, is that the period of time in which body language became a key component of your work?
Interesting. Yes. Body language had always been a key component. I was obsessed with that from a little kid. I mean, here's Desmond Morris's Man Watching here. Now called People Watching. But I mean, what's the date on this? I remember ordering this from like a book club. What date have we got on this? 1977. So I was seven. Okay. 7 and obsessed with how people move and why they think and why they feel how they feel and how does this world kind of work. So I was always obsessed with the image and the body and movement. In my mind, everything is made in our image. I know there's some religious ideas that don't make that true, but in my mind, everything is a face, everything's a body. Even if it is, you look at a tree in the right light, and it moves like a body. The front grille of a car, a vehicle is designed to look like a face, be it a hard, aggressive one or or a friendly one that would be great for your family. So I was always obsessed with that. It was only until that business and politics area that people said, look, can you help us? And then, well, I saw that there was just an incredible market there. Nobody else was really doing anything at my level in that. I mean, there were people who said they could help you be a good speaker, or they just didn't have my background. And even if they did, even if they said, well, I was an actor and I trained here and I did this, it's like, okay, so I trained with the best in the world. I spent years traveling across the world, going to the masters in this really specific area, and then working at the highest possible level within that area, really mastering it. So when it came to movement and communication, it was, well, I knew the wiring underneath the board. Like there's people who could go, well, we could move the components around, or here's what I'd like you to do, but I don't know how the engineering works. And then I'm like, I know what's right underneath that. And I know the power supply as well. And I know all the elements into that we could manipulate this at a level that nobody will be able to see. Well, and also at a level whereby it's super economical as well. You can just trip a switch over here that nobody knew about. And the behavior cascades. Like if you know the wiring under the board and you know what to touch and fiddle around with, you can do something so simple that cascades across the system that you get a very economic response. So to your point, the body language piece really came from once I'd realized that there was a great market gap. It's like, well, how do you sell this? Because who needs a communication trainer? And what is one of those anyway? And how is that interesting? Well, I've thought, well, people are interested by body language, or certainly I am. If you say to people, hey, body language, they're like, oh, that's really interesting. And they think they know something about it. And then the moment you go, well, have a look at this, and you reveal it to them, they go, wow, it was interesting, but I never knew you could do that. I never knew it was that powerful. So body language was a great way to start talking about communication training in a way that there would be, I'd have a market, I'd have a niche, I'd have a market niche, essentially, a way of talking about it that nobody else was talking about. And even if they did, they just didn't have the authority that I had. A little roundabout way there, Jamie, but I hope I got somewhere for you there.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about it, it's contextual. Are there any individual or maybe 2 or 3 quick traits that an executive or a leader watching this could be more aware of about how they're showing up that would help them come across with more of a positive executive presence?
Yes. I'm going to go for this one. Here's what tends to happen. The executive goes, you know what? I'm the executive. They've reached a certain height. I usually, when I'm in their offices, I'll usually look at like how much height dominance does their office have? Like, how much of the world does it see over the top of? The higher up it is, the more power they have, the more they're going to think, well, look, I got here by being me. I just need to go on in front of people and be me. And that'll work. Because it seems quite a good piece of logic. And also there's a whole bunch of kind of media out there that says, hey, be you, just be you, and be your authentic self, and people will respond to that. That totally discounts that they are a social mammal. And you aren't you. You're you within the context of everybody else. So there's everybody else. Now, it would be great if everybody was important, but they're not. Some people are more important than others at certain times. And so when you as an executive go to deliver a message, you've got to stop thinking about you and how you are and how you got up to that office, which looks over everything. You've got to think about, who am I in context with when I'm speaking, and what do they need? Who do they need to see? And can I be that? Would I be okay with being that? Or could I give them that first and then show them me? Because it's more than just showing up as you. It's showing up as sometimes an ideal, a star, a guiding light, something that people can follow. My guess is you're going to speak as an executive because you're a leader, you want to be a leader. In order to be a leader, you must be followable. I can say I'm a leader, but where are my followers? If nobody's following me, okay, I'm a leader, but nobody follows. So so you say. What do they say? Do they say you're the leader? And so they've got to, in order for them to say you're the leader, they've got to know what are the behaviors that we're all doing together, which means you must be followable. You must be a star. Therefore, you must be an ideal light. What is the ideal they're looking for? And how do you do that? How do you do that? So that you do exist and you are important to this, but you've got to work out how you communicate that ideal to them. That's where most people fail. They go, you know what, I've done pretty well. I'll go on, be me, tell a few jokes. I'm pretty good at jokes. And you know what? They usually laugh and they nod their heads. Yes, because you own their pay packet. You have a coercive measure, and they're pretending. They're being good actors, and you believed them as well. That's the awful thing, is that you saw them nodding their heads, and you came off the stage going, well, they were all nodding their heads, so that went really well. Well, we don't know that. Are they following you? Like, you know. So look, that's where I'd go with that one, Jamie.
And that's helpful in person. Briefly, we're now speaking on a Zoom call, like many people will, with a discovery call, with a pre-call, with a team meeting. So many meetings now, even after COVID, have shifted in one way or another to a hybrid environment. When we're doing this right now, what are a few tips for leaders in their environment, as you are, amongst other trainings, the trainer for Zoom?
Yeah.
The people behind the scenes at Zoom, you train their people. So really, you are the world expert in virtual communication. What are a few tips you'd have for leaders to improve their meetings, improve their presence virtually, to help them win trust and credibility in all that they do in leadership roles?
Beautiful. Let me tackle this by letting everybody know exactly what you're doing right, Jamie. Let me do it that way. Listen, I can see your microphone. It's not a particularly, I know microphones really well, and it's not a particularly expensive microphone that you have there, but damn, it's doing a great job. It's doing a really good, and that is helping me to see you, strangely enough, okay? What you've done is you've really focused on your sound. You've made sure your sound is really good, okay? By making sure your sound is as good as it can possibly be, and to do that, I know you haven't spent a massive amount of money on that. You could have spent way more and had exactly the same effect, probably not any better than you're getting now. You could have spent thousands and having a worse sound, quite frankly. So just what I love about what you've done is it's economical as well, because I like business and I like your economics, but it's a good sound. I don't have to go, what's he saying there? Because every time I go, what's he saying there? See what happens in my face? Yeah. And you're taking up neural load. Every time I can't hear you properly, you're taking up my neural load. And some of that neural load, to deal with the distortions that are coming with a bad sound setup, you're taking the visual cortex to do that. So I stop seeing you really well. In fact, my eyes will narrow like this when I can't quite hear you. Yeah. So not even enough light will get through. So the other thing is, I can see you, I can hear you, and I can see you. I mean, the classic example of not being able to see you at all is that black screen with, JMC on it. It would probably have, it would be, yes, exactly. Now I'm Johnny No Mates, as I call it. Now I've got no friends. My friend has even disappeared from me. When insufficient data, we default to negatives. If I can't see you, then doesn't matter how good a message you deliver to me, I'm going to bias towards negatives around you, okay? So I can see you, I can hear you. And what can I see really well? 2 eyes, yeah, and a mouth. And that's the main thing. Those are the main things that cause us to go, okay, this is a human being, and therefore I should connect with this person. So just like me, you've tried to get, as close to the camera as you can without being too dominant. You're not height dominating me at the moment. Your camera is exactly at eye level at the moment. I know, because you know TV just as well as I do, that you really want that camera at an eye level, or maybe just even a little bit above, but eye level is great, so that you don't dominate me, I don't dominate you. We feel on a level together. Let me give you one more thing here, which I think is key, is I can see your background. It's not a mystery. And, even though we're good friends, but I've never been in your home, so I don't know it. I've never been in it, but you're giving me enough information there that I'm not confused by it. You're in some kind of office room. Looks like you've put up some pieces maybe by your kids, and you got that live on air piece as well, that piece of branding as well, maybe a letter in the background there, and I can see a clock, and there's a lamp over here. There's nothing there that I'm going, oh, that's really prominent and very confusing. So you're not using up my neural load. Your context is clear. All of those things, and we could go further, but all of those things are stopping me doing thinking that I shouldn't have to do when I'm in a communication to you. When you're talking to me or we're having a conversation, it shouldn't be a crossword puzzle. Should be, we're looking for clarity, not some kind of investigation, or like, what did he say? Why did he say it? What's going on here? Where is he? Those are not questions that are useful to us in getting on. So well done, Jamie. It's a great setup you have there.
Well, thank you. And you've been instrumental in helping with that as well as other things. So in summary, what I heard is cameras at eye level, make sure the sound is, you can hear it. It's precise. This is an Audio-Technica mic that cost me about $125 in 2015. Beautiful. Still works. I use it for the podcast. I use it to record an audiobook. It's perfect. And you also said it's okay to show your backdrop, which some people are a little bit uncomfortable with doing, but that shows just enough personality that creates a context and invites you into the person's space who you're speaking with.
Yeah. Good praise you there. Great mic, by the way. I'm on a $500 mic, and I think yours sounds better. Right. And I'm putting it through another piece of equipment, which is probably another $1,000. Yours sounds great.
Thank you. Thank you for that feedback. You've had this incredible trajectory of where you started in entertainment to being, one of the leading keynote speakers in the world. You have a TV show. You've done all these extraordinary things. I want to actually stop for a moment, moving forward, and move back before we move forward into the second half, which is, I would love to know what are some of the life challenges or biggest life challenge you have overcome to get to where you are today.
Yeah, I think I've only had one real challenge, which was really, major challenge, which was really early on, which is being dyslexic and quite, it turns out relatively severely. I can't really drive a car. I don't know what left and right is. Left and right makes 0 sense to me. Zero sense. And I love it. I love it when people go, like if you say left or right, I have no idea. And people have to go, well, do this. And I think to myself, and I don't, some people I say it to, and I really, really shouldn't. I should leave them alone. But I go, I've been to a bunch of universities, and I count myself as relatively intelligent. Do you think if this worked, I wouldn't have already done it? Like if this worked for me, I'd just be doing that. So these are exactly the same to me. I can't tell any difference between that symbol and the other symbol. One way around, it doesn't make it's no consequence to me. So left and right don't make any sense. Means when I go on journeys, taking directions, I end up some incredible places. Like I'll turn up to meetings and they'll go, like they'll go, oh yeah, the meeting's down the hall. They just turn left and right, and I will meet so many people on the way because I got incredibly lost. Total other company part of the building. So look, as a kid, I was very challenged with reading and writing. Reading, actually, my reading level was very, very, very good. But I mean, nobody could see the hard work underneath it. Nobody could see the paddling that was going on underneath. And also that a lot of the time, I don't know what I was doing with the reading, but I would come out with what I knew to be in the book, but it would turn out it wasn't in the book. But I'd come up with something that people would go, you know what, I didn't even get that from the book. And that's amazing. That, you know, that's really kind of, they would say, you know, that's really, gelled that theme for me in the book, or I didn't see that character in that way, or that event in that way. And I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I mean, because that's really what's happening in the book. And I believed myself to be true, but clearly I hadn't read it. I had invented it in some way out of probably keywords that were going on. Now, my writing was terrible. It was not readable as far as I could tell. And that was proven by the amount of reading that came back, and that anybody reading my work at school would give up by about paragraph one. By about paragraph one, so much reading, they just go, look, I can't, that's an E, because I just can't continue through this. So that was a bit of a barrier, because there was a strong sense of just daily failure at a level that nobody else, apart from a couple of other guys who were in the lowest possible spelling set with me, they seemed to achieve the same sort of level of attainment as I did, but they seemed to achieve it out of just being kind of physically violent most of the day. So for me, it was like, well, I think they're not doing so well because they're just smashing stuff up and hurting people most of the day. They were actually quite, most of the time, quite nice people, but their frustrations would show in violence throughout the day. So look, I mean, here's what I would say. It wasn't a way of getting through school that I would want for anybody else. It's not a way to go. That sense of failure it's not useful. It's not helpful.
Well, thank you for sharing. I know that story and that part of you. And even to this day, I find it one of the most inspiring examples of overcoming challenges for someone who's a good friend, someone who's, mentored me, to see what you've overcome, which you'd think is so paramount and central to what you do now. As a speaker, as a thinker, as a writer, you've written several best-selling books or co-written. So the gift that I find that story gives me is you can take your most profound challenge and turn it into a driver or as a motivator to push you to new innovative ways that you wouldn't have known unless you had that challenge. I'm not going to say a disability. I'm going to say it was a challenge that you overcame and used in some way to your advantage. Yeah,
I mean, look, in hindsight, Jim Henson, through Kermit the Frog, says it best, which is take what you've got and fly with it. Take what you've got and fly with. All those Muppets are just brilliant at just, they're such a ridiculous bunch, but each of them has something that Henson and Oz would kind of go, let's make this difficulty that they have a real feature and a driver about them. So yeah, Kermit was right. Take what you've got and fly with it. I mean, what else have you got, in my mind?
Yeah. Was there a mentor in your early life who believed in you before you believed in yourself, and you still think about them helping you climb that mountain and reach the heights you've gotten to today?
Yeah, I mean, a guy at Middlesex, where the university I went to in order to study performing arts, and I'd gone there. Well, it was a place I got into because they would let me in with 2 E's. Basically, they let me in with 2 E's. which means, I could get in with the lowest possible mark you could get. You could just about matriculate. You needed a GCSE, I think, lowest level in mathematics to get into a university as well. And that was just to get in. Like universities wanted much higher than that, or they saw something in you and they were like, we've got to have this person. You just got to get the very minimum. So I got in on the very absolute very minimum that you possibly get. I mean, I got in art, which I excelled in, visual art, which I excelled in. I got an A in that at A level, and it was the highest scoring work of that year for A level art, and it went on tour. And I never got the work back, unfortunately. So I got into university, and there was a guy there, John Wright, who ran a theatre company, which I ended up working for. My first ever job was with that theatre company called Trestle Theatre Company. They were a masked theatre company. They were my heroes. They were like the band that I wanted to be in, because they were making moving pictures. They were making theatre cartoons and the most beautiful stuff. Had an incredible show. First one that I saw, called Top Story. Ties That Bind, which was about domestic abuse with minors. I mean, it was a very strong story, and it was done with mask theatre. It was like a cartoon. Sometimes, it's like puppets and cartoons is sometimes the only way that you can communicate really hard stuff to an audience, because you're departed enough from it. I wanted to be in that band, and I'd gone to this university, and everybody seemed much better at performing arts than I did. I mean, everybody seemed better at everything than I did. But one day John said to me, took me aside. I'd been working with him in a class, and he said, "You can do this. You can do," and that was the specific work that he was interested in, mask theatre. He said, "You can do this." And I really took that to heart, because I wanted to do it. And he said I could do it. And so I decided I was just going to learn everything that he knew. I was going to follow him around and learn everything that he knew. And so I did that. I ended up working for the company, working with him even more, teaching alongside him, then eventually teaching alongside the people who taught him. And so, and that was about being, I was super narrowly focused, very focused in a specific area, and wanted to get good at that. It's that thing of success. When you failed at the usual stuff so badly, I think you'll just kind of hang on, or certainly I would hang on to anything that somebody had said, "You could do this." And it didn't happen often. So when somebody said, "You can do this," I was like, okay, then that's what I'll go for.
So someone who said, "You can do this," who was in a position of power, who demonstrated expertise and timing was right, that was a moment of mentorship that helped you. How else would you define being a mentor?
Yeah, I mean, I think yeah, I mean, that's a really tricky one, because my experience with mentors, my relationship with mentors for me is always, they're brilliant at the ideas that they have. They are brilliant at the ideas that they have. They're just brilliant in their field, and you want that. And in my experience, you work with them to attain that. And in my experience, then what my head does is wants to improve and change and nuance and move further. And at that point, because the mentor is brilliant at what they do, but they at that point are quite, I don't know, they're so rock solid with it that there comes a point where there's an argument. There comes a point where that's not going to be your mentor forever, and you might not be able to patch up what the argument is. There is no, with strong ideals around how things should be, especially around art, there isn't a middle, there isn't an agreement, there isn't a middle way. for me anyway, and it seems for the people that have been my mentors. So for me, it always ends up in a parting. Let's just say that.
Like the Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
Putting you down the yellow brick road on your way. And they show up at times in your life when you might need them, if not in solid form, in their lessons.
Oh gosh, yeah. Look, I'm still John's work is in everything that I do. Everything. I mean, I wouldn't have the skills that I have without that foundation, the best possible foundation in my mind of how you tell stories with pictures is John Wright's work.
And before we wrap up in a few minutes, this is a show where we speak to leaders across the business spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
What is it, based on your own personal work with leaders at all size businesses, what is it that has stayed the same when it comes to effective leadership, and what has changed in terms of what it means to be an effective leader today?
Yeah, what has stayed the same? Well, I would go back to my principle of be followable. That's never going to change. I think just having that view of I don't care what your idea is. It could be the best idea on the planet. If you're not followable, you will not get a team together. It will not get built. The idiot down the road with the terrible idea, but that is followable, will win more followers, get it done, and it will be a disaster. So it is your duty, if you believe you have a great idea, if you believe you can make a better world, it's your duty now, and you've got an idea of like, here's how we'll do it. It's now your duty to be followable. It's your duty to put all your effort into not a better idea. They're going to win down the road with a terrible idea. You don't need a better idea. You need people around you to get that done. And that means they have to be able to follow you, which means you've got to be followable. So concentrate on that. Now, what's changed? This is like, who thought this was going to come along? Who thought? I mean, when you were making, I was making a film and TV, probably around the same time, Jamie, that you were. You'd have been younger than me in it, but we made at the same time. I don't think either of us could get our hands on cameras that were even this good. I mean, they were big and whatever, but the chip was insignificant compared to that. And then how you can manipulate that is extraordinary. And that we have this in our hand and we can communicate to people. We have this tool to be able to amplify our message is extraordinary. So I think as a leader, you have to think about how you amplify the message with the tools that are around you, because again, you've got a complete, what would seem like a no-hope idea, a ridiculous idea, an idea that actually shouldn't be propagated, potentially, down the road, and they've got one, and they will beat you. Unless you use the technology and the tools, yeah, if you're going to be a Luddite about it, you will fail. Yeah. And their extreme, ridiculous, outlandish, unhelpful ideas, one single voice with one lone attitude can reach millions, and the algorithms will amplify. They're designed to amplify the extreme because it's quite entertaining, really. So I think this has changed, and we need to be mindful that we can't go, look, I've got a great idea, it's enough. It's that, as I always say, it's build it and they will come. They're not coming. They're going to be watching Netflix. It's fantastic. Disney Channel, brilliant. The Mandalorian, love it. Okay, it's like, or like doom scrolling. Yeah, I love it as much as anybody else. I love it as much as anybody else. Yeah. And why? Because it works. I mean, it's not going to make the world a better place, but it does stuff to my head that makes it's designed to do that. You must, I guess, not discount getting involved in media as much as you can as a leader. Yeah.
Perfect. Mark, where can we get a hold of you to see how we can work with you? As I have, by the way, is when I was prepping my TEDx talk in 2014, it's the only time I've ever seeked out someone for one-on-one coaching, and it was with Mark, and he made a significant difference in helping me. So where can we find out more about your work across all these paths with organizations? Please let us know.
Yeah, really easy. TRUTHPLANE.com. TRUTHPLANE. TRUTHPLANE.com. Go there, you'll find me. Or just put Mark Bowden into Google, and I'm all over that thing. So you'll find me.
Excellent. So, Mark once said to me, to paraphrase, he said, "Don't show them your expertise. Show them how much you care and show them your passion for what you do." And you've demonstrated, like you always do, in walking your talk and really being the type of leader that you teach others to be. And so I want to thank you, Mark, for being on a leadership standard and for sharing your wisdom along what you're doing now with the new show on the behavior panel, for teaching us about what it really means to overcome challenges and adversities in your life to reach heights that you might not have even imagined at the time you would get to, for showing us a few real practical examples of what leaders do when they show up with executive presence, both in person and also in a virtual space, and so much more. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Jamie. Great to be here. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. So I'm Jamie Mason Cohen. This is the Leadership Standard, where we explore real-life stories from across the business spectrum. If you want to see more interviews like this with world-class leaders and thinkers like Mark Bowden, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Leadership Standard, brought to you by Tech Canada. To learn more about Tech Canada and how we support CEOs and business leaders like you, visit tec-canada.com. Until next time, keep leading with excellence.